So, what is the state of sex work law in America?
It's illegal. Very basically, sex work is the exchange of sex for money or goods. And in the United States, a complicated patchwork of local, state and federal laws makes that act illegal everywhere except for a few counties in Nevada.
The state of Ohio, like the vast majority of the United States, prohibits prostitution. According to Ohio law, section 2907.22a, no person shall knowingly 1. Establish, maintain, operate, manage, supervise, control, or have an interest in a brothel or any other enterprise, a purpose of which is to facilitate engagement in sexual activity for hire. Supervise, manage, or control the activities of a prostitute in engaging for sexual activity for hire. 3. Transport another or cause another to be transported in order to facilitate the other person's engaging for sexual activity for hire. 4. For the purpose of violating or facilitating a violation of this section, induce or procure another to engage in sexual activity for hire. What this essentially means is that for the purpose of sex work, it is entirely outlawed, except for the massive loophole that is porn, because it is always illegal to pay for sex unless that sexual activity is put up for public consumption. Then it is free speech. In comparison, Nevada is the only state where it is semi-legal on a county-by-county basis. The Nevada law, NRS 201.354, defines prostitution as engaging in any sexual conduct for a payment. Prostitution is legal in brothels in counties with a population less than 700,000. These brothels allow for sex workers to gain more rights in the workplace. They can safely contact the police for help in situations where they would have likely been arrested in prohibition states. On top of that, brothel workers in Nevada are required to go through multiple health checks to stop the spread of sexually transmitted diseases.
This is our doctor's office. As a legal sex worker, I am bound by law to do an STD or STI test every 7 days and do blood once monthly.
According to a University of Nevada, Las Vegas study, legal sex workers report less violence and a heightened sense of security. According to that same study, women working as legal prostitutes pay taxes, work card fees, house fees, and room and board expenses within the brothel. They typically earn 40 to 50% of what they bring in by servicing customers, while the remainder goes to the brothel owner. Workers also usually tip cleaning and food service staff.
There are an estimated 1 million Americans directly employed by the sex work industry, almost 60% of which are women and 66% of which are 35 or older. So, regardless of its legal status, it is undeniable that the sex work industry will continue to exist. When talking about its legal status, the question cannot be, how do we eliminate sex work? And more, how do we minimize harm within the industry?
Oftentimes, they're not afraid to hurt you. And additionally, because you're a sex worker, they feel like, well, she can't even report this to the police, so I can do whatever I want to you, right?
Did you feel like you couldn't report it to the police?
Absolutely. Because what am I going to what's my excuse for being in the strange man's car?
Yeah.
So it's terrifying, it's scary. You don't want to report these things to the police.
The first way is by creating a safe environment to report sexual abuse or misconduct without fear of being arrested for prostitution. There are many activist groups who fight for this complete criminalization of prostitution because they claim that in any form is a kind of exploitation of women and others. But this logic is inherently flawed, as criminalization prevents many from reaching out to law enforcement for help in the case of violence or other crimes. Thus, with this approach, we stop those who are victims of sexual violence from reporting that violence for fear of being jailed. The second method is by government regulation, which would seek to move them from the street corner and into a safer environment. In 2003, following immense support from the public and a coalition of various advocacy groups, New Zealand passed groundbreaking legislation to decriminalize sex work. The legislation, which was crafted with consultation from various sex workers, has worked wonders to create a safer environment for women in this field.
My name is Randy. Welcome. Follow me.
Randy's regular paying visitors can come in and relax, secure in the knowledge that they're both engaged in a perfectly legal business transaction.
It is just like any other job, perhaps less stressful.
In New South Wales, prostitution has been decriminalised for 15 years.
It is meant to be a relaxing environment. And when you're worried about things like police raids or, you know, these kinds of things, or what's going to happen next, is someone going to bang on the door and rush in and arrest you, you know, that it's not relaxing.
Well, decriminalisation has seen a drop in rates of HIV and sexually transmitted diseases. Sex workers can get condoms for free.
Decriminalisation results in a healthier sex industry, which means that if your son or your husband sneaks off to the brothel at night, he's far more likely to come home healthy.
Erode stigma and create a human rights-centered approach. Last year, for example, a sex worker from Wellington successfully prosecuted a brothel owner for the Human Rights Review Tribunal for sexual harassment by her employer. She was awarded $25,000. As things become fairer, they will grow up in an environment where, and they will not accept these harms.
It is estimated that the underground sex economy in Seattle grows by 123%, from $50.3 million to $112 million. Between 2005 and 2011, were similar trends repeating throughout the country. As this illicit industry continues to expand, the law surrounding it is becoming ever more important. It is essential that this conversation starts with a basic agreement that the people employed in this industry are human. They deserve humanity and respect in the same way that any other form of employment deserves. These sex workers are there to make a living first and foremost. It is not helpful to criminalize sex work in such a way that it targets the worker and not the abusers. The prohibition of sex work has forced workers into the shadows, into the back alleys, and into less safe situations. These situations then contribute to cycles of unreported abuse. Methods of decriminalization in New Zealand have been proven to be far more beneficial. This is because they take a human rights approach. The state of sex work law in America is a web of state laws that prove ineffective in curing prostitution.